Hello everybody! So hopefully everybody had a wonderful Christmas or holiday season depending on what you celebrate. I know that I for sure did. It was a really fun time. I ate a lot of good food, I hung out with family, just generally a really good time. So I'm happy to be back. I'm so sorry that it's been so long since my last ZZZ video. December was just so hectic, there was so much going on at all times preparing for Christmas and whatnot, but hey, the good news is that I'm here now, and we are back at it with another Zenless Zone Zero video. I'm hoping that I can post some more content over the next couple of days because I've just had idea after idea that I've wanted to make but just haven't gotten around to it yet, so look forward to those. But today I wanted to talk about something in particular. I want to discuss the potential future of ZZZ's Powercreep. So part of why I want to talk about this is simple. I play most of the other big popular gacha games, and one of those is Honkai Star Rail. I quite enjoyed that game, but recently it's not been as fun because the HP inflation is just ridiculous. It's really hard to keep up with, and it's just made me so much more acutely aware of power creep in these games, because the thing with Genshin is I never really considered power creep when it happens. Like, I'll notice when it happens, right? I'll be like, oh, okay, you know, this character is obviously better than this one, but ultimately it's not like you couldn't clear with the old one, whereas in Star Rail it's like, if you try to clear with Blade, good luck. You see, recently I managed to fully clear Hoyo Defense. Yay me, I can clear part of the endgame now. I still can't do the pure fiction mode, the one that needs 3 teams. I still need to build a 3rd team and whatnot, but hey, I can clear Hoyo, let's go, that's awesome. And I actually managed to make DPS lighter work, isn't that cool? Anyways, so I managed to clear that. Considering that I was able to clear by using a stunner as a main DPS, I don't think we have that much to worry about in terms of like difficulty and power scaling, at least for the next like couple of months or so, we'll see. Then again, my lighter build is really good. Okay, I'm getting off topic here. So back to the point of power creep. Now, one particular character brought this to mind. That would be Hoshimi Miyabi. She is a fantastic unit. Anybody that's pulled for her, you know how strong she is. This is like the release of Nouvellette all over again, or like Acheron on release. That's how strong she is. It's just stupid how good she is in every situation for such a minimal amount of gameplay effort. She's really fun to play too. I love the character. Excellent, right? So she came out in 1.4. Now, she's also like the Archon type unit, so keep that in mind. But then you realize that in 1.0, we had Ellen Jo. So she's an Ice DPS, and then you've got Miyabi, who's a Frost DPS. I know they're technically different, but, you know, the Frost, Ice, same thing. You get the point. General idea is, if you see an Ice weakness, you're probably gonna use your darn Miyabi. Anyways. So Ellen came out in 1.0, and now we're in 1.4, and we have Miyabi. So obviously, if you have a Miyabi, you really don't have a reason to pull for Ellen anymore. And if you pulled for Miyabi and you had an Ellen, let's be real, you're probably using Miyabi over that shark person, like, any day of the week. Unless you're like a really big Ellen fan, but this is just looking at it from a pure meta point of view. Now, to be fair, I would say that's pretty natural in terms of Hoyoverse. If we look at their previous patterns, that's pretty natural. Look at Venti from Genshin Impact. He was good for like the entirety of the 1.x era, then Kazuha came along in like 1.6, so a bit longer than Ellen's lifespan, but still generally like just the 1.x sort of time. Then you move on to Honkai Star Rail, there was Zilla, and then I would say she was good, and then the likes of like Jingliu and Imbibed Lune, and though that lot came out, and then she progressively fell off and off as time went on. Now, I'll say this though, I think Ellen's had it pretty bad. Like, it did not take long for her to fall off in general, but that's just because the 1.0 meta in ZZZ, from what I've seen, is just anomaly. It's like the Hyper Bloom or Super Break of Zenless Zone Zero, and it is just the pure meta right now is to go for that stuff. So, crit DPSs, they've had it a little bit rough in this entire patch cycle in general. But the power creep is undeniable. Like, okay, you can make your case, you can say, okay, yes, but Ellen can clear. Yeah, obviously. Any character can clear. Bro, I cleared with DPS crit lighter. I played a stunner as a main DPS and I can clear. Yes, anyone can clear, but that's not the point right now. The point that I'm trying to make is that the power creep is, you know, definitive. So anyone who pulled that woman back in 1.0, well, she's cooked now. So what does that mean for the future of power creep in ZZZ? Because to me, I feel like Ellen is more of an unfortunate case, more than anything else. It's like, it was meant to happen. She was the 1.0 character, and the thing is, you can't really go up against like the Archon type character. Like, Miyabi is a Void Hunter. Whatever, if she was like an Ether DPS, right? If she was an Ether DPS, then Ju Yuan would be cooked. If she was a Fire DPS, then Actually, Bernice is more like a sub-DPS, so I don't think she'd be cooked, but you get the point, right? Like, whatever element she would have been, she would have power crept and been the absolute best of that element, no matter what, and because there's weaknesses in this game, you know, that is, like, fairly relevant. Because it'd be ideal to not have multiple dupes, and you would rather have a wider array of DPSs that cover a wider array of elements. So once you have one really, really crazy good ice DPS, you're probably not going to go after another one. But Ellen's, like, especially bad. Now, from what I know, Zhuyuan is, like, decent. She's not crazy, but she's not, like, horrible either. Just kind of a case of Anomaly is better than crit DPSs at the minute. But we haven't gotten any other Ether DPS yet. I believe she's the only 5-star Ether DPS that's limited. So, in that sense, there hasn't even been a chance for Zhuyuan to get power crept yet. And that just makes me wonder, when these characters get reran, are they going to only come back after they've been power crept, or are they going to keep introducing new DPSs of these elements that are just objectively better than the last one? Because I would say that I'm not as worried about power creep in ZZZ for these reasons. Now, I will admit, Honkai Star Rail has made me so just apprehensive and just kind of, you know, hairs pointing up about power creep. I just try to be really careful about it and just try to go vertical investment at this stage just to try and avoid ridiculous power creep. But from what I've seen, every character kit in Zenless Zone Zero has been quite unique. They all do different things. The thing is, Miyabi, she is undeniably a great ice DPS with Frost, but like I said, you know what I mean. So unfortunately, Ellen just can't compete with that. But every other DPS, they're quite unique. Zhuyuan, she has her own unique gimmick, you know, ether nuking. You've got Bernice, she's her own unique gimmick. She's like fire anomaly off field and whatnot. You got Yanagi, great anomaly DPS while also being a great pair with the likes of Miyabi. And you can also see how, despite Lighter being an absolutely fantastic stunner while also being the hottest character in the game, you've got Qingyi, another stunner, and she hasn't fallen off yet because she has her own teams which are pretty good. Just because Lighter came out, Qingyi didn't suddenly become bad. In fact, she recently got another good synergy with Harimasa coming out. So that's what I like to see, because I really don't like it when just characters keep replacing old ones and there's just that cycle, that vicious cycle of, you know, new character does similar thing to other one, but just does it better, have fun. That just annoys me when power creep is that fast, but mostly because the resources are limited. Assuming that you're not a whale, and that you go by the resources that you get from, you know, just playing the game and whatnot and playing the events, you can only build so many characters so quickly. Which is why I've always hated when characters, it's like, oh, this is a new best must-pull, must-have, and yeah, okay, there was another one 2 patches ago, but no, now we're 2 patches later and there's a new one, and it's just so exhausting to keep up with. Now the thing is, pretty much any character can clear. So even if power creep does happen, I suppose what really matters is, are these old characters clearing? And considering that I'm able to make a stunner clear, and for anyone who's not familiar with my channel, I don't have like an M6 slider. I will M6 him on his rerun, but right now I have M1W1 on a crit build, and I can still clear, right? So it's not like I have some crazy unrealistic level of investment here. So anything can clear at the minute, and that's what matters. I believe the absolute worst 5-star in the game that really struggles to clear is Nekomata, and she's a standard unit. But there's no limited 5-star where it's like Blade tier, you know, Honkai Star Rail Blade tier, and you're like struggling to clear the endgame. Genuinely, there is no possible way where you can make them work. So while Miyabi is showing the first signs of power creep in Zenless Zone Zero, I don't think power creep on its own is bad, I just care about how it's handled. As long as the endgame doesn't scale up ridiculously, it's fine that, you know, we get more broken characters over time, we get better kits over time, eventually the endgame is gonna scale up, we are gonna see difficulty spikes over time. Compare Genshin's 1.0 Abyss to, like, their current abysses, it's a night and day difference. I'm sure that the enemies that we have in the 1.5 Shoyu defense are not going to be, you know, as hard as the ones that we're gonna get in like 4.0 or way later on down the line. What really matters is, are we being given the resources that are, you know, abundant enough to keep up with the game's power creep? So are we getting enough level up materials? Are we getting enough, you know, resin so that we can get more disk drives? Are we getting enough polychromes to pull for the constant new characters? Now the good news is that ZZZ doesn't seem like it's in that terribly dire position where we're just getting power creep after power creep. Now, the game is newer, we're not even in 2.0 yet, and like I said, most DPSs of each element, they're like the first of their kind. Zhuyuan, she's like the only one of her kind. Whenever there's a brand new ether DPS, I do think she's gonna get power crept. Now, my general golden rule of thumb, I think a character should have maybe this is too long in some people's opinion. I think a character should have 6 months of shelf life before they, like, you know, fall off. I think that's a pretty good long amount of time to say, okay, that character had their time, you know, we can move on in peace now. So while Miyabi is just obviously a huge step above everybody else, not even just Ellen, just everybody else in general, well, she's a Void Hunter. She kinda had to be broken and ridiculously overtuned. I have a feeling that she's going to be the best DPS in the game until, like, I don't want to be as generous as, like, 3.0, but maybe at least until, like, halfway through 2.0. She'll be broken for a very long time. I don't think she'll get power crept, like, immediately. Evelyn is probably gonna bring some stonks to the attacker niche. I'm looking forward to seeing that because attackers could use some help right about now, and she uses lighter. I'd like to see the lighter agenda being strong. Now, the nice thing with the faction system is that, generally speaking, there's not gonna be a whole lot of overlap with teams. You know, a Section 6 character, they're gonna want to work with another Section 6 character, and then we're definitely gonna get way more factions in the future, right? But you can always rely on Miyabi and Tsukishiro being a good synergy. And just because some other great electric anomaly unit comes out in the future, that doesn't suddenly mean that Yanagi's useless, because there's a high chance actually, that they're not going to automatically fit into Miyabi's teams, because they might not fit in with the passives. So that whole faction system is a pretty good way to prevent, like, immediate power creep. There still has to be some degree of, like, team building going on here, and I like that. I do really like that. So, generally, my hope is that going into 2.0, we're not going to see some immediate ridiculous power creep. I'm fine with there being some characters that are just objectively the best. That's gonna happen in any gacha game. And where there's the desirable, there's gonna be the undesirable. You're gonna have your Nekomatas, you're gonna have your Ellen Joes, so that you can really appreciate the stronger characters, and then you're gonna have your in-betweens. Like, Asabu Haramasa, he's not, like, breaking the game or anything, but he's a pretty good unit, especially considering that he's free. I think that Yanagi and Bernice are probably two of the most future-proof units at the minute. Bernice, because you can play her essentially as like a sub-DPS, and then Yanagi, you can play her as a sub-DPS or a main DPS, and she's just a really good anomaly in general. So far, Qingyi has convinced me that the likes of Lighter and Qingyi should be fine. It seems like stunners are generally quite a good niche, but we'll have to wait and see. It could just be the same as Genshin, where it's like, you want to get most of the supports, and then the DPSs, they just kind of change whenever. I do think power creep can be healthy to an extent, because the thing is, you don't want it to be a situation where a couple of characters, a handful, are the only good ones for a really long time, because that can be really boring. I know that whenever Freeze was the best team in Genshin for the first couple of years of its release, goodness me, it was a really long time. You had to have been there. Like, Freeze was the team. It was the goated team. And it got to the point where people were starting to get annoyed, like, oh my goodness, Abyss isn't even like a DPS check anymore, it's just an Ayaka and Ganyu check, and you'd hear all of that. So a rotating meta is perfectly fine, and so far, I really hope this video doesn't age like milk, so far, the power creep has been manageable, and while Miyabi has totally killed Ellen off of the face of the earth, let's be real, Ellen was also just not that good to begin with. Like, even if Miyabi was not a Frost unit, or just like a subsidiary of Ice, Ellen would not have really been worth your pull anyways on a rerun, just because, like, there's just better now. Like, that's not really even directly related to Miyabi, just Miyabi sealed a coffin that was already in the making. Definitely let me know about what you think of the potential future of power creep in ZZZ, because I don't actually think we've had enough time to really see how we're going to handle power creep, or how they're going to handle HP inflation. I think 2.0 onwards, that's going to be the real test, because there's probably going to be a big difficulty spike in the end games, I would imagine so at least. You know, there's going to be a big difficulty spike when we get more broken characters and whatnot, so we'll have to see if after the 1.0 era, how are they going to handle things. And so far, it's looking good, it's looking manageable, and I, as someone who's been, like, actively playing, I've had the game for longer than this, but I think I've only been actively, like, playing every day, like, properly for, like, a month or so. I joined the game in 1.2, but I was pretty much just doing dailies for Lighter, but yeah, so I was able to clear endgame in a pretty timely manner. This is using Shoyu defense as the baseline for the record. Either way, Ellen can still clear endgame at the end of the day. I can clear with a freaking crit stunner, my guy. I can play with DPS Lighter at M1W1 and get by just fine. So I think we're all right. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. I look forward to the future, but I'm also worried about it. And I'm also posting this on our beloved lighter's birthday. Happy birthday to Best Boy. I love this character, he is very, very attractive, so just thought I'd bring that to light. If you made it this far in the video, then go and appreciate him down below in the comments. Hopefully this video was able to feed you some food for thought regarding the potential future of Powercreep and ZZZ. This has been Juice, signing out. And honestly, my personal solution to this, I'm just gonna M6 Lighter on his next banner so that I can continue to stare at this beautiful man when I play in-game. No matter what, I shall be the Lighter main of all time.